There is a particular smell that belongs to Lush. It hits you before you see the shop. Before you have even decided to go in. It drifts out through the open door and down the street and wraps itself around you, warm and complex and unmistakably alive, a mixture of fresh flowers and citrus and earthy herbs and sweet vanilla and something underneath all of it that smells like someone actually made something here today, with real hands and real ingredients and genuine care about what went into it. That smell is not manufactured in a factory somewhere and pumped through a ventilation system to create an atmosphere. It is simply what happens when you put freshly made cosmetics, made with real food-grade ingredients, with essential oils and fresh fruit and plant butters, in a room and let them be what they are. That smell is Lush. And the story of how a small cosmetics company started in a converted shop in Poole, England, in 1995 by a group of people who genuinely cared about what went into beauty products and where it came from and what happened to the animals and the people and the planet along the way, became one of the most distinctive and most ethically serious beauty brands in the world, is one of the most human and most hopeful stories the beauty industry has ever produced. But to understand where Lush came from, you have to go back a little further than 1995. You have to go back to 1977 and a mail-order cosmetics company called Cosmetics to Go, and to the people who started it, and to what happened when it failed spectacularly in 1994 and left its founders with nothing but their knowledge, their values, and the absolute certainty that those values were worth rebuilding from scratch. Mark, Constantine and Liz were met in the 1970s when Constantine was a trichologist, a hair and scalp specialist, and Weir was working in beauty. They shared a conviction that most beauty products were not good enough. Not in their ingredients, not in their ethics, not in their honesty about what they contained and where it came from. They began making their own products, developing formulas from scratch using natural ingredients, fresh plant materials, and essential oils at a time when the natural beauty movement was in its earliest stages and most of the industry was still producing products with ingredient lists that required a chemistry degree to decode. Constantine's connection to Anita Roddick, the founder of The Body Shop, in the late 1970s and early 1980s was a significant chapter in his early career. He supplied The Body Shop with product formulas and recipes in its early years, a commercial relationship that provided income and experience but that eventually ended and left Constantine determined to build something of his own, something that would embody his values more completely and more radically than any supplier relationship could allow. The failure of Cosmetics to Go in 1994 was devastating financially but clarifying philosophically. It forced the founders to understand exactly what they believed in and to build the next venture on that understanding rather than on any residual wishful thinking about what the market would accept. Lush launched in 1995 with a product range that was genuinely unlike anything in the mass beauty market. The products were made by hand. Not hand-finished or hand-packaged, actually made by hand, mixed and shaped and formed by human beings in a production facility that operated more like a kitchen than a factory. The ingredients were fresh. Not preserved with lengthy shelf lives and elaborate synthetic stabilizers, but genuinely fresh, using fruits and vegetables and dairy products and fresh plant materials that gave the products a vitality and an effectiveness that shelf-stable synthetic formulas could not replicate, but that also meant the products had shorter shelf lives and needed to be used within a reasonable time of purchase. The concept of naked products sold without any packaging at all, was one of Lush's most radical and most important innovations. The bath bomb, which became perhaps the most recognized Lush product in the world, came naked. The solid shampoo bars came naked. The massage bars came naked. The concept was simple and the reasoning was straightforward. If a product is solid and stable and does not need to be protected from the air, why does it need packaging? The answer, in the conventional beauty industry, was that packaging was marketing as much as protection, that the box and the bottle and the label were part of what consumers were paying for, part of how brands communicated aspiration and value and identity. Lush said that none of that was as important as not filling the ocean with plastic. And it said so in 1995, before plastic pollution had become a mainstream cultural concern. The Lush bath bomb itself, the product that made the brand famous internationally and that introduced an entirely new category of bathroom luxury to millions of people who had never thought of a bath as an occasion for color and scent and fizzing theatrical chemistry, was invented by Mo Constantine, Mark's wife and co-founder. She was experimenting with the chemistry of bicarbonate of soda and citric acid, which react when combined with water to produce the characteristic fizzing effect, and she had the insight to see in that reaction not just a chemical curiosity but a consumer experience. The experience of watching something beautiful and unexpected happen in your bath, of colors blooming and scents rising and the water transforming around you. The bath bomb gave millions of people who had never thought of a bath as anything other than a practical necessity permission to think of it as a genuine pleasure. A moment of care and enjoyment in a life that had too few of them. The Lush store experience that developed around these products was unlike anything else in beauty retail. Where department store beauty counters were pristine and aspirational and staffed by consultants in immaculate uniforms whose job was to make you want things, Lush stores were sensory and unpretentious and staffed by people whose enthusiasm for the products felt genuinely personal because it was. The products were displayed on wooden boards and market-style stalls rather than in illuminated glass cases. The solid products were cut from large blocks with knives. You asked for a piece and it was cut in front of you, weighed, and wrapped in paper, in a way that felt more like a delicatessen than a beauty shop. The staff were encouraged to pick products up and smell them and put them in customers' hands and tell them what was in them and why those ingredients were good for their skin. The whole environment was warm and honest and slightly chaotic and deliberately unlike the polished distance of conventional beauty retail. The ethics that underpin every Lush product and every Lush business decision were not a marketing strategy. They were the founding principles of a company built by people who had been thinking seriously about what the beauty industry was doing to animals and to the planet long before ethical beauty became a consumer trend. Lush has been against animal testing since its founding. It has never tested its products on animals and it has never sold products in markets that require animal testing for imported cosmetics, a position that has had real commercial consequences, most significantly limiting the brand's ability to sell in mainland China, where animal testing for cosmetics was required by law for much of the brand's history, and where the compromise of those values was simply not something that the founders were willing to make in exchange for access to the world's largest beauty market. The Lush Fighting Animal Testing campaign, which has been running for decades and which has funded and supported organizations working to eliminate animal testing from cosmetics and from scientific research more broadly, is one of the most sustained and most genuinely impactful corporate campaigns on a specific ethical issue in the history of the beauty industry. The money raised through the campaign, through Lush products specifically designated as campaign fundraisers and through the Lush Charity Pot, a hand cream whose entire sales price after tax goes to small grassroots organizations working on environmental, animal rights, and human rights issues, has funded work that has changed laws in multiple countries and has contributed to a broader shift in public and regulatory attitudes toward animal testing in cosmetics. The charity pot is worth examining in some detail because it is one of the most unusual and most genuinely generous products in the beauty industry. The entire selling price of the charity pot, minus tax, goes directly to charitable organizations. Not a percentage. Not a portion. All of it. Lush makes nothing from the charity pot except the evidence that its values are not decorative. The organizations funded tend to be small, local, grassroots groups that do not have the profile or the fundraising infrastructure to access major charitable donors, exactly the organizations that most need funding and that find it hardest to get. Lush staff members in each country and each region identify organizations they feel are genuinely effective and genuinely deserving, and the charity pot money is distributed to those organizations based on those recommendations. The process is personal and direct and entirely consistent with the brand's fundamental conviction that doing good should be actual doing rather than aspiration and announcement. The Lush approach to sourcing, to understanding where every ingredient in every product comes from and what the conditions are for the people and places that produce them, has developed over decades into one of the most rigorous ethical sourcing programs in the consumer goods industry. The Lush buying team travels to supplier communities around the world, verifying working conditions and environmental practices and the fairness of the commercial relationships between Lush and its suppliers. The Community Trade Program supports suppliers in developing countries with fair pricing, long-term purchasing commitments, and genuine partnership in developing sustainable production methods. The transparency about where ingredients come from, the stories behind the vanilla from Madagascar, the rose absolute from Turkey, the cocoa butter from Ghana, is not just ethical window dressing. It is Lush's way of reminding both itself and its customers that every ingredient has a provenance, that every purchase has consequences, and that those consequences can be made good ones if you care enough to ensure they are. The Lush product range has grown from the original small collection of fresh cosmetics to encompass shampoos and conditioners, skin care, hair care, bath and shower products, fragrances, and makeup. But it has grown without abandoning the principles that govern the original range. The products are still made by hand in Lush production facilities by people who are paid fairly and who work in environments that the company takes seriously as places where human beings spend significant portions of their lives. The ingredients are still fresh where fresh ingredients improve the formula, still natural where natural ingredients are genuinely better for the skin and for the planet. The packaging is still minimized wherever possible, and where packaging is necessary it is increasingly made from recycled materials or from formats that can be returned to Lush stores for reuse or recycling. The Lush Fresh face masks, kept refrigerated in the store and with a short shelf life printed clearly on the label, represent the brand's most extreme expression of its commitment to fresh ingredients. The masks are made with ingredients that would be familiar in a grocery store as much as in a beauty shop: fresh papaya, banana, oatmeal, cream, honey, formulated into preparations that do genuinely good things for the skin precisely because the enzymes and vitamins and nutritive compounds in fresh fruit and dairy are present at their full biological activity rather than degraded by the heat processing and preservation methods that make shelf-stable products possible. The short shelf life is not a marketing quirk or an affectation. It is the unavoidable consequence of a genuine commitment to using ingredients that are actually alive. The Lush digital and social media presence, developed particularly strongly through the 2010s, created a community of enthusiastic customers who filmed themselves using bath bombs and posted the results with a joy and an abandon that no marketing campaign could have manufactured or equaled. The bath bomb video became a genre of online content, the close-up shot of the bomb hitting the water and beginning to fizz and dissolve, the colors blooming outward, the scent that the viewer could not smell but somehow felt they could through the visual richness of the image, that introduced Lush products to a global audience who had never been near a Lush store and who felt a genuine desire to experience what they were seeing. The bath bomb became one of the most watched product categories on social media, and Lush became one of the most discussed beauty brands in the world without paying for the conversation that was happening about it. The Lush Spa experience, available in larger Lush locations around the world, brought the brand's values into a luxury treatment context with the same commitment to genuine ingredients and genuine ethics that characterizes the products. Lush Spa treatments use Lush products throughout, the same products available for purchase in the store but applied by trained therapists in treatment rooms designed with the same sensory richness and complete absence of pretension that characterizes the broader Lush environment. The treatments have their own names and characters, each one built around a specific mood or intention: calm, energy, playfulness, sensuality, and each one carefully scripted to combine physical treatment with sensory experience in a way that feels genuinely nourishing rather than merely pampering. The Lush response to the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated the values that the brand had been building for 25 years. When lockdowns closed stores and production facilities, Lush immediately began producing hand sanitizer and donating it to healthcare workers and vulnerable communities at a scale that required genuine commercial sacrifice, and that was done without the kind of public announcement that brands more concerned with being seen to do good than with doing it tend to make. When the stores reopened, the protocols that Lush put in place to protect both staff and customers were developed with the same genuine care for human well-being that had always been at the heart of how the company operated. There is a word that the beauty industry uses a great deal and means with widely varying degrees of sincerity. That word is values. Most beauty brands have values in the same way that most buildings have architectural details. They are present and they are visible and they form part of the identity of the thing, but they do not determine what the thing fundamentally is. At Lush, the values determine everything. They determine which ingredients are used and which are not. They determine which markets to enter and which to refuse. They determine how products are priced and how staff are paid and how suppliers are treated and how much of the company's income goes to causes rather than shareholders. They are not decorative. They are structural. They are the foundation, not the facade. Mark Constantine and Liz Weir and Mo Constantine and the other founders of Lush built a beauty company that asks its customers to think about what is in their products, about where those ingredients come from, about what happens to the packaging afterward, about the animals who are not harmed so that a moisturizer can be made, about the planet that has to accommodate the consequences of every consumer decision that every one of the billions of beauty product purchases made every year involves. They ask these questions not in a lecturing or a self-righteous way but through the evidence of the products themselves, through the ingredient lists that read like recipes, through the naked products stacked on the shelves, through the charity pot sitting on the counter with its entire proceeds going to someone who needs them, through the smell that drifts out into the street and says before a single word is spoken that something real and good is being made in here. That smell is still there. In every Lush store, on every high street in every country where the brand exists. It is still the smell of fresh ingredients made by human hands for human skin. And it is still, more than anything, the smell of people who genuinely care about what they are making and who they are making it for.